Okay, welcome to the first vodcast I've created for this unit. I'm going to keep them very informal. Hopefully they'll give you a little bit of a background to the various topics we're going to explore as you approach the various paragraphs that we're doing in our assessment. The first vodcast I want to use for you is really a stimulus, a way of getting you thinking. We're going to talk about a background to the Nazis, the NSDAP, and we'll explain that term later on. And I'm going to introduce you to an idea in this very short vodcast that the Germans saw the Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler, as kind of saviours in this age of anxiety that existed in the 1920s, 1930s, after World War I. Now, we're not going to go into great detail about the time of the 1920s and 30s, but it certainly was a time where there was a real loss of meaning in life in Germany. There was a sense of the world, Europe in decay, coming to an end. So it was ripe for groups who were going to present a new way of seeing the world. There were people who were lost, and there were some groups in German society in particular who were extremists offering a new way forward, and the Nazis are an example of one of those groups. So let's have a look at this propaganda poster created in about 1935. It's a pro-German poster. It's a pro-Nazi and pro-Hitler poster. It's done by a German artist called Stauber. The name of the poster is Es lebe Deutschland, which means long live Germany, and it was created in about 1935. When you look at the image, we can learn quite a bit about the way people saw the Nazis at the time. Firstly, let's look at the more simple factors so we can learn something about the NSDAP, the term I'm using instead of saying the word Nazis all the time. Firstly, in the image, you'll see swastikas, or Hakenkreuz in German. A Hakenkreuz means a hooked cross. Have a look at the corners. Have a look at the background. Have a look at the flag. And have a look at the top middle of this source. Here we can see our Hakenkreuz. We can see it held by our central figure, Hitler, and we can see it in great numbers in the background here. The Hakenkreuz becomes the symbol of the Nazi Party, the NSDAP. Red background, white circle, black hooked cross. Our figure in the centre of this image is Adolf Hitler, the German Führer by 1935. He was leader of the Nazi Party, known very much for that small moustache. He was also referred to by the term Führer as leader of Germany. Führer simply means leader. Führer was a combination of the position of German president and German chancellor. The Germans called their prime minister position chancellor. Hitler combined president and prime minister, president and chancellor. In Australia, that would be a little bit like combining the position of governor general and prime minister into one office and just calling it leader. We also see in this image the German eagle. Now the German eagle you can see a couple of times. One in the sky and also in that centre top holding the Hakenkreuz. The Nazis loved the symbol of the eagle and they saw it as a link back to ancient Roman times where the eagle was a symbol of power. It's a bird of prey. In the background behind Hitler, and of course Hitler is wearing a similar outfit, in the background behind Hitler are brown-shirted members of what are called the SA, the Sturmabteilung, the Nazi Party's private army. Now, Sturmabteilung in German would translate most closely to something like storm workers, but we wouldn't really call it that in our society. We'd actually translate it more loosely, and we would call these people stormtroopers. And you'd be used to that image, maybe even from shows like Star Wars, where the stormtroopers are a form of soldier. This is the private Nazi Party army, an army that they used to deal with their opponents, to beat up their opponents, to intimidate people. Now, what I think is interesting about this image is the way in which it has almost a religious side to it, a way that it indicates Hitler was like a Jesus figure, a Messiah, a Christ-like figure who comes to save Germany. Now, if you had seen this propaganda poster, like an advertising poster, in the 1930s, it would trigger in your understanding and in your memory a whole stack of religious images. This is the kind of image that people were familiar with if they went to church regularly. Over about 500 years in Europe, in Germany, there are a large number of paintings produced relating to Jesus being baptized. And let's have a look at one now. This is the baptism of Jesus, one that I've just picked out of a Google image search, painted in around 1493. And look at the similarities between the two images. In the central figure of the baptism of Jesus, we clearly have the figure of Jesus being baptized by John the Baptist. In Es lebe Deutschland, the figure of Jesus is replaced by a figure of Hitler. So what the artist is essentially saying in this image is that Hitler and Jesus are similar importance. That if Jesus is the Saviour, the Messiah, the chosen one for humanity, sent by God to do a job, Hitler, in the same sense, is a Saviour, a Messiah, a chosen one, sent by God on a mission for Germany. Now that's a pretty extreme thing to suggest. Let's see if there's other imagery in there that is similar. Have a look at the baptism of Jesus and a dove sent down from God to signify that Jesus is the chosen one. The dove is a bird of peace. In the Es lebe Deutschland image, we have the bird of war, the bird of power, a bird of prey, an eagle coming out of the heavens to settle on Hitler as the chosen one, a symbol of power from God being passed to a human. In the Jesus image, it's a symbol of peace being chosen, being brought down to the chosen one. Look at the background. Hitler is surrounded by his disciples, his followers, the SA, the brown-shirted Nazi stormtroopers. Here, in this other image, the baptism of Jesus, we have the disciples gathering around to watch Jesus' baptism. His followers are there. Notice in both of them a river, just to remove any sense of there's a coincidence here. The River Jordan features in the baptism of Jesus. If you were really trying to indicate Hitler was the chosen one, you would try to put a river in there as well, because that's the imagery that goes with the baptism. And there it is in the background, a river. Doesn't really serve a central purpose in Es lebe Deutschland, but it does suggest the baptism. In the story of Christ being baptized, God says from the heavens, "This is my Son, this is the chosen one." Notice how the sky is lit in Es lebe Deutschland. The suggestion is that God would be choosing Hitler to lead the German people to a better future. And I think that says quite a bit about the way the Nazis were seen in Germany. Thanks for listening to this first podcast.